Steve, what do you do in your spare time? You must have a lot of spare time according to this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, like, and some things are coded weird, like that transport of the girl that was drinking bleach that day. I think that came in as a family complaint or something, so it's like,
Yeah, that's good, that's a good start.
dispatch just words it as they word it, so.
Looks good.
I didn't touch anything, I promise. I know that's your domain, you get real protective
Oh,
about
yes,
that.
no, please.
How you doing?
Plan to go on a bicycle. Yeah, I feel like I'm missing out.
You okay though?
Whatever y'all want, put the back up. Do something, gotta get a new chair. All of a sudden, you know, this is a weird, you know? Yeah, I'm sure.
Did you start your movie yet, Mark?
Uh-huh. I did.
Well, it looks like time to get up and do the pledge and then move on to our meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we call the December 13, 2016 council meeting to order. All council members present. Engineer Ryan. Scott Riggs, attorney. Mike Lawson, administrator. I see no ordinary citizens in here to make comments, so we can pass that by. And are there any
Everybody
additions?
here is extraordinary.
Exactly.
Yes.
Any corrections or additions to the agenda? Motion to pass the agenda as printed?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda. Is there anything that should be taken out, or do we have a motion to accept that as printed?
Make a motion to consent agenda.
Approve it.
And I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving right along. We have no presentations or public hearings listed here. So we can get on to engineering. Update on the fire facility project. Joe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your packet was a memo along with the this month's pay estimate on the fire station project. Briefly recap what's outlined in the memo. The construction status, the site grading is essentially complete. As of our progress meeting that we held on site on December 1st, there's only some minor touch-ups, for example, where the electric utility installation had been made. So minor touch-ups such as that were left to be remaining, and then placement of the seed. The water main bacteria test has been passed, and the results have been provided to the city administrator and also Kenyon Municipal Utilities. Gas service and cable TV installation are both complete. Electric service was installation as of December 1st and was scheduled to be completed by the 8th. And as I mentioned, our third monthly progress meeting on site was held on December 1st. The parking lots, they were able to get the concrete curb and gutter down in all three parking lots. They had been concerned they wouldn't get that far yet this fall, but they were able to get all the concrete work on the exterior completed. They did get the first lift of bituminous pavement on the south parking lot. Now, the bituminous plants did close in mid-November, so that is all the paving that we have placed for this year. But we had discussed that at the previous meetings, that the east and west parking lots would remain gravel over the course of the winter. Gravel base on the east and west parking lots is in place for the most part. There'll be some minor additions and touch-up that'll need to be done in the spring, but the majority of the gravel is in place. The precast wall panels, the placement and welding of all the panels is complete. Caulking of the joints on the interior side of the joints are complete on the interior of the panels. Caulking of the exterior joints was in progress as of our progress meeting and was scheduled to be done by December 8th. Some of the other building systems, the concrete floor slab was completed in the office area, and the steel framing for the walls was essentially complete in the office area as well. The framing on the mezzanine level had not yet been done, and because of that, they were holding off on pouring the concrete floor slab in the apparatus bay, because they were still using that area as for hauling materials in and out. They didn't want to pour the concrete slab and risk any damage to the slab. The exterior windows are installed, the exterior pedestrian doors are installed, or were in progress, and the overhead doors they've been fabricated and are ready to be shipped, but they're holding off on having them shipped to the site until the slab in the apparatus bay is poured, because they don't want to install those doors until after that slab has been poured. The other item we wanted to mention was the roof. As you know, the system that was selected for the building through the alternate that was bid is the adhered membrane roof. And the roof originally was scheduled to go down in November 15th. Unfortunately, the subcontractor missed that window of opportunity. So they were out the week of December 1st while we were in the progress meeting working on it, because they were up on the roof working while we were in our meeting. And they had planned to continue work through that weekend and get it done by last Monday the 5th. Well, they didn't get it done. Now, there were some complications because of some moistures and some temperature. But the bottom line is that they didn't get it completed by the time they had said they were going to get it completed. So we worked with the contractor since that time. They've got a revised plan for getting the roofing completed. And without getting too much detail, it's a multi-layer system with primer, a vapor barrier, 2 layers of insulation, and a membrane. And of course, there's adhesive that has to go down accordingly between those layers. And the adhesive is moisture and temperature sensitive. So they've got to have the right conditions for the adhesive to go down and to bond. So right now, this week, with the cold temperatures, it's outside the range that's recommended for that construction. So what they're going to do is, in order to keep the roof dry, because when the moisture gets in the roof, that's when it slows down too, because they need the proper moisture content of they need the dry condition for the adhesion. They put all materials down loose now and have weighted it down so that it's essentially protecting the roof from moisture. And then next week, the temperatures are projected to get back in the mid-20s for highs in midweek. They estimate they have 3 working days left to finish the roof. And they think if the high temperatures do get in the mid-20s next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as they're projected, they'll be able to get the roof finished next week. And if temperatures don't warm up, then they'll be looking for the following week. So essentially right now they've got the roof placed dry, not adhered, but placed dry. And they're just looking for that window of the 3 days with the proper temperatures for them to be able to apply the adhesions. They essentially take the layers back off, put the adhesives and put the layers back down and bond it. So from the perspective of the city as the owner, there's some extra steps that the contractor is doing, obviously, but from the city's perspective, when they're done with this process, the roof will be installed per spec, it'll still have the same warranty, and there'll be no additional cost. And if the temperatures do allow them to get that roof completed next week, there should be no impact on schedule as well. So that's the latest update on the roof as of when I spoke with front architects and contractors as of about 10 a.m. this morning.
I think this should be really voted in the record because of the fact that the roof's one of the most important things, and they're not working on the most ideal conditions. And with the snow and the moisture, I think we could have we'll catch up with problems later on, so I want to re-noted that the conditions under which the roof was installed.
Mhm.
They did miss some much better conditions earlier.
Mhm. They did, yeah, and like I say, they're not trying to make excuses, they did say that, as the temperature, as the season gets later, any moisture that fell on the concrete roof, how it gets into the surface of the concrete, and they've got to try and dry that back out. And with the drying days getting shorter, it took them longer to dry it than they anticipated, which shortened that window of opportunity. But the bottom line is, and the contractor said this, he said, I'm not gonna make excuses for the subcontractor. They missed their window of opportunity, and they could have gotten it done, and it just didn't happen. So that's why they wanted to, when the snow came Saturday, that's why they worked to get all the snow removed from the roof and get it dried, and then get the materials put down loosely, and just wait in place so that if there is any more snow coming, like they're predicting, that the surface is protected from the moisture, so that they don't have to go through the process of trying to dry it again. They're trying to keep that roof dry. But to Councilmember Marcinus's point, it is, they're aware that they've got to do this extra process now, but the subcontractor said he'll stand behind his work. The roofing, the supplier of the materials has said that the full warranty will be in place. We're gonna have the contractor document the installation, with pictures and a daily log, so that we have a record of when it goes down. We have some visual photographs of the adhesion and that. And then, of course, Runton Architects will be doing an inspection of the roof in spring, as they would have done anyway, so.
Frankly, I'm not the slightest bit happy with that particular subcontractor's performance. Everyone else seems to have
Yeah.
been performing as they should.
And when I spoke with Mo's too, they were also not happy with, because obviously it does affect the other trades, You need a good roof over the building to protect what's going on inside the building. So they want, as much as anybody, the general contractor Mo's does, to make sure that roof gets on and gets on right.
Well, that's, was yesterday I was asked, why is there water running off the roof? And I didn't have an answer because I hadn't been up with it, so, in other words, they were clearing, they said water.
Yeah,
So that's why.
they were up there trying
So
to
apparently
get the
they
snow
must have been
removed.
pushing the water
Yeah,
off, okay.
trying to get it dried so that they can get the materials, set on loosely to protect that from any further moisture.
Then I can answer that person.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with that, as far as the pay request, there is a pay request, the regular monthly pay request. They've asked for about another 13% of the general conditions. They've asked for some more of the earthwork quantities, totaling about 90%, which makes sense since they've just got minor work left to do. They've asked for about 12% of the paving, which would be in accordance with that first lift on the south lot. They've asked for 37% of the curbs, about a quarter of the steel framing, and you can see down the list all the different items. Copy of the pay request as submitted by the contractor is attached, and then we've taken that and prepared it on the required USDA form and attached that as well. The amount of the pay request as submitted, the payment would be, the amount of the contract this month would be $298,968.26. As far as what's coming up in the next month, our next monthly meeting will be December 29th on the site. And by then, we expect that rough-ins are going to be completed. The work on the mezzanine, on the framing up on top of the mezzanine should be completed, and the gate should be installed, and the railing. That'll allow them to pour the concrete floor inside the apparatus bay, and then that will in turn allow them to install the overhead doors. So by the end of this month, and assuming that the roof is able to get wrapped up, it should be in pretty good shape by the end of the month. The contractor feels that they're still on target for the specified substantial completion date, which is March 2nd. So with that, the action requested or up for consideration by council would be to consider approval of pay request number 4, subject to concurrence by the USDA.
So moved.
Second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Request approved.
Thank you, council.
Installation of SCBA, it says BA here, but
It should be B as in boy.
BA is a typo.
breathing apparatus.
Yes.
Correct.
Fresh air intake line.
Mark, do you want to start with,
Yeah,
with your memorandum?
the fire department is seeking, and normally this is probably a kind of a minor item in the budget, but I'm just bringing this to the council because it's a new building and because it's outside of the contract, so I thought, they should probably do some kind of special approval, Scott, unless normally, like, if this was in the building across the street, we'd probably just say it's in the budget.
Yeah.
Go ahead and do it. It's $680 now. But I thought because it's outside of the construction contract, it might be better if the council did some kind of action on it to approve it. So basically, this is a 2-inch PVC line installed for fresh air intake from the SCBA room of the new fire department facility. The plumbing contractor on the project provided a quote of actually $680 to install this line. The work would be outside of the construction project, and it would come out of the fire department budget.
Mark, is that on the east door, entry door?
Boy, I don't know without looking at a diagram, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't wanna, I think it is, but I don't.
I mean, it's not on the entry door
No,
facing the south?
no, I think,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
I don't
I think
think
it's
so.
on cord wheel.
Well, Councilman,
Yeah,
thank you.
it will,
Yeah.
but I mean, said above the entry door, that's why I'm saying.
Joe's got a thing there, diagram, he can
I
probably
got
show
the
you.
floor plan,
Floor plan.
yeah, sort of relative location of the.
Sorry.
Yeah, when you look at the relative location of the SCBA room, it would seem that the door they must be referring to is probably in this east wall.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
Right. I just wanted,
Pass this on. You guys want to look at this?
and just for a little further explanation, as referred to in the plan, I've got the detail over here of the SCBA room. Essentially, what the contract supplied was to set up the SCBA room and get the lines to the room to supply the SCBA unit. But the particular SCBA unit was to be purchased by the owner. And with the wide variety of them out there, according to Run Architects, there's well in excess of 50 different models of SCBA units. That some have different venting requirements and some have different locations for where the venting is. That the particular venting for the particular model that the Kenyon Fire Department wants is typically left to be done per the manufacturer's recommendation as an item by the owner as part of the fit and finish of the particular piece of equipment. So I know there was a question as to why the vent line wasn't included in the bids, because that until the model of the compressor and SCBA unit itself was known, it didn't know whether the vent pipe should be going up through the roof or out through the wall, or if a fresh air intake vent was even required. So,
Well, that does clarify the matter.
yeah, and it was specified right in the plan that the SCB fill station and the tanks were not included in the contract, and were what they term FF&E, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment item. So, and as long as CNC Mechanical is the subcontractor working with Mo's, so as long as they coordinate with Mo's location of where this is, so that it doesn't interfere with any other building system, then there should be no problem at all.
They're on site.
Yep, we'll just make sure that Mo's knows that CNC is going to be installing this vent line on behalf of the fire department, and make sure that they coordinate the location with them.
So, we have a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we move on to legal. Scott, update on property abatement at 411 Bullis Street.
Yeah, sure. As we discussed at the last meeting, the matter was out for service. We're having some issues with serving all the parties. They had to be done by publication as well as personal service. That all was completed last month. I noted that at the beginning of the month we'd be filing with the court as occurred as of last week. Very shortly, a court date will be set if necessary, and we move forward as you've instructed before. That will happen probably in the next 7 to 10 days or so. And the matter should, absent anything changing from where it's at right now, typically that would be the judge would rule at that point in time and give us the order to move forward. So,
Courts being notoriously,
just depend on what date we can get. So I mean, that is, and you're in the month of December, which makes it a little more difficult as well, but no, it should be forthcoming fairly soon. And I don't think it should be too hard to get a date. Typically, these don't take that long.
possibly in the neighborhood of our January meeting, maybe.
Yeah, no, I absolutely believe that. That'd be the case. And if something would change before then, obviously, Mark and I will talk and figure out what else we need to do and let you know that. But no, we should be at that point where it's been filed and approved and served. It's a matter of just dealing with the court now.
And what happens after that?
Then you can enforce the order as you see fit. Property that can be vacated, can be raised, removed, and you decide how you want to do that at that point in time. So that'd be the next step, what you actually want to do to enforce that order. It is drafted as it was in what you saw before, which is to remove the entire structure, and that's what the order would be from the judge.
Okay.
So nothing for the council to do, it's just a narrow process at this point in time.
Our monthly update on a slow-moving process.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to,
Yes.
say a few things about this. I want this to go to court. In fact, I'm wondering why it took, it's taking so long, because the abatement was, must be done by November 1. Well, it's getting late here. Let's get to in front of the judge, because
There was.
I have, that house is mine and hers, we own it. And it's for sale. If you guys wanna buy it, you can buy it, but you're not gonna steal it or condemn it. I got enough evidence way beyond to prove that the house is not a dangerous structure. And
It's
that
not
it's not gonna be torn down, and you guys wanna keep putting money in and trying to abate it, go right ahead, but you gotta do it legally and fairly. That
Precisely,
inspection
and
was
that
the
is
most
exactly what
funniest
is being done here.
27
following the
minute
legal
inspection
channels as they
that
are.
condemned the place. So you can go into somebody's house in 27 minutes, and, yeah, it's, the only hope for it is the bulldozer.
When I was going to your house and deciding
You know?
whether.
And then they come in there and take pictures, you know, it's a civil case right now. When we go to the judge, if it doesn't get, if that doesn't get taken care of that day, well, then it turns from a civil matter to something else, criminal, and I'm not the criminal. Think about that.
Okay,
Let's go.
and now we can move on to ordinance 84, ordinance granting franchise.
Thank you.
Mediacom Minnesota LLC.
Not fair.
This is a follow-up from previous franchise the city has had. That franchise was in place for many, many years. The city went through that, I believe, back in, well, I've got to say 1990, early 1990s. It had expired, but they generally do continue on until a new franchise comes into place. What had happened, and Mark has been dealing with one of my colleagues, Bob Bose, who handles telecom matters, that MediaCom did not follow the appropriate process to come back in and start a new franchise or try to create a new franchise. Yet they requested and or demanded that a number of the provisions of our previous franchise be taken out, reduced, removed, which would lower service levels and things like that. Bob responded and said the city council was not going to be receptive to that. I know, Mark, he worked with you on this. So the instruction for us tonight from me to you is to adopt the franchise as is. That would get us into a secondary mode of discussions with MediaCom potentially, but the reality is they missed their time frame to try to change the franchise. And that's kind of in a layman's term, I think that's what he's discussed with you, Mark. The reality is they've been trying to do this with a number of other communities in the area where they've come, I'll call it after the fact, and tried to reduce franchise provisions that you've negotiated in years past and remove those. I don't think they'll be that successful with it. But again, it doesn't change what you do tonight to adopt the franchise, it's just an ordinance adoption, you move forward with it, it gets served on them, and Mark and Bob will take care of that, and we'll see what they do at that point in time. Typically, they would have to accept, if they don't accept, the other franchise continues on and we don't change anything anyway, so really there's nothing detrimental to the city to move forward at this point in time.
Now, there's a note here in the memorandum that just Bob now reports that despite being close, MediaCom will not accept the final negotiated franchise agreement. Well, what were the provisions that they were objecting to?
You know,
Yeah.
let me try to put this in perspective. You know, Bob Volz is a city attorney in Pine Island, so I worked with him there. In Moose Lake, we had a franchise renewal with MediaCom, and we worked with them there, and that went on 2 years that I was there, and it had been going on before. And now we have the same deal here. What happens is, they get verbally, they'll get to a point where they'll say, okay, we're good with most of this draft, and this has happened multiple times. And we have to go back and just kind of do one more review, and the attorney says, or maybe we'll say, I've got to, get back with MediaCom.
Yeah.
And then every single time she comes back with, all of a sudden something else is redlined, something else has changed. So then they get that wrangled out, and it goes back to the way it was, and 2 more things show up. Now, honest to God, I honestly thought this was gonna get resolved like a month or 6 weeks ago. I thought it was that close. Well, it was that close, and all of a sudden, she was taking it back again, and came back, and I think Bob seriously thought that this time he was gonna get a agreement, and there was some stuff redlined again. So, we said, that's it, man, we're not gonna keep going through this.
And he was very frustrated. He said that that has occurred in other circumstances, but Mark's right, and he even showed me, he said, look, here we have this, and I was copied on a number of these, and the reality is they kept changing language when I think they thought there was an agreement, but
It's just minor stuff.
it really is.
Notifications.
MediaCom's objective with all this delay?
I don't know,
Decrease services?
sometimes, yes, and we've got certain drops we're required to do, things like that to the city, public access channels, things like that they sometimes want to change or don't want to provide upgrades to equipment, things like that. I don't think they're really trying to do much with those things. though.
Not that I can see, no.
Yeah, that's why it's sort of odd.
None of that, they objected to it. They didn't object to the PEG fees, they didn't,
No.
that we could do, which I don't think we will, but this agreement, they have to provide an updated character generator for the cable access channel, which we need really bad, because the one that we have back there is ancient, 20 years old or whatever. And they never objected to that per se. And Bob said they've got those units like sitting in a warehouse, and that's not their problem, that part of it. Well, that's the biggest thing I want to get out of this now, is to try to get at least that piece of equipment updated. But I don't know there's no consistency to this that I've been able to see. It's just a lot of minor stuff, and
Basically, sounds like they
I
just
don't know.
want to be in the driver's seat and
Yeah, it may be, because you had a similar franchise to many of the communities down here, and they're trying to make them slightly different. And I don't know if that's to play things off later or what, but Manorville was going through the same or similar process, so was West Concord, so were some of the other communities very close by, that MediaCom services. So, I don't know, but between Bob and Mark, they weren't trying to change anything we had. There was right-of-way management, which typically is something they object to as well. So it didn't seem like any of the major issues were out there. And that's why Bob said, and Mark said, let's just adopt and put it back to them, because either they accept or they don't. We continue on with the same unchanged franchise.
well, we just adopted as an ordinance,
Yes.
and then they have to follow it.
Yeah.
basically bound them.
And I think that's the
That's
only
the
way to
step.
go right now.
Yeah, it is,
We
because
can't
they've
keep screwing
missed
around
their
with that.
window to really have an objective or objectionable type negotiation with us. They missed that under the federal statute. So, yeah, the recommendation is move forward, adopt the ordinance, and then also adopt by resolution the publication rather than doing the whole ordinance, just the summary publication.
So you make it sound real simple, so what happens, we adopt the ordinance, and resolution, is it a done deal, they have to accept it?
Typically, yes, Fred. That's what it is. I don't think I don't think they will stop at this point, and I think that's what Bob believes, that's what Mark believes. But the reality is, yes, that's really the next step. They've missed their window to come back and say, all right, let's argue over this and let's have a battle, because they proposed the franchise too late in the time frame of the renewal process. There's a statute, they've got to follow certain time frames, and they haven't met that.
So what gives them the only authority to come in all these towns? Isn't there an open market?
It is, and the problem typically
In the
is.
ordinance, it states that non-exclusive.
Exactly, and if there was another provider that was willing to do that, you certainly could grant another franchise. Oftentimes, that's a problem, it's difficult, most cities do not have multiple providers, because you have two sets of I guess you call it the plant, two sets of lines running through the community.
They have to vary all over town,
Yeah,
so it's just not cost effective.
They own all the lines that through
Yeah.
town, so if we say,
Radios.
then
We're not, and that's the problem with the way the federal statute is, it's very difficult, it's a monopoly, let's call it what it is. You have some cities that have multiple providers, we don't have that here. I mean, the only places you see that are in bigger communities where it's cost effective to do that, somebody else has come in and had certain areas and said, no, we want to be in this market, we want to do this. It typically doesn't happen with smaller communities.
Yeah, you don't see, even in bigger communities, like, Faribault, Rochester, you don't see two major
Yeah.
coax-based cable companies, but what the competition is that's coming here too is gonna be Frontier.
Yeah.
They're gonna have video supposedly this next year in Kenyon and surrounding towns. So
It's just-
there'll be your competition. right
It is,
there.
it's just a different platform, so the hope is, and that's where some of the cable companies are trying to battle against that type of platform. It'll be different, but it'll be service you can get for the same type of things, so.
Maybe MediaCom will do more now, maybe they'll
Yeah.
lower their price or up their service, or I don't know.
Well, so that's what I'm worrying is, I kind of got to put it this way. Who's the horse and who's the cart? That's kind of what I'd like to know.
Yeah, you have the ability to push back, and you did that years ago. I think, Fred, you were on the council at that point in time. It was even the last time we did a negotiation, where you asked for certain things, and they did provide those. They
And now
talked
it's
about
not
pulling,
gonna happen.
well, they talked about pulling those back, but they really haven't done that. That's why I don't understand what the process or what they were trying to do.
And that's why I'm asking, who's the horse and who's the cart? I mean,
Well, that's why we're saying, adopt the ordinance and tell them this is what it is.
Yeah, that's what we're doing, in this ordinance, 10 years ago, franchise agreement, city's ability to put things in them was a lot better than it is now. I
Right.
mean, there was a big push and a lawsuit several, maybe 7, 8 years ago from AT&T
Yeah.
federally. It almost stripped out everything, and then luckily, some of it was put back in, to allow cities to regulate cable and the specific nuances, without getting into a lot of 100 pages of legal jargon, was put in there, but it's probably not the same as it was before that in some ways, but we still have the ability to do PEG fees, which are, like if we were gonna buy equipment, like cameras or something for video, what that amounts to is they can say, okay, they're gonna put a charge on everybody's bill. We would say we need, 50 cents per subscriber, we're gonna use that money for something related to like cable access channel. But we don't have any plans on doing that, we don't have the setup for that, a bigger city might. But this does give us, that does require them to give us a better character generator for the cable access channel. That's a big thing which we need, so that's in there. And a lot of it is the same types of regulation that we've had before. So I mean, the city is telling them this is what we're gonna do, because in a lot of places now, a lot of these franchise agreements are just expired.
Yeah, they have.
So we're not letting that happen.
No, I'm moving forward and
It's pretty complicated. I mean, this agreement is how many pages, and it's not like it's,
29, 28.
yeah, it's not some one-page thing that
Yeah.
spells out. But those are the key things we look at is, okay, are we gonna get equipment? And it kind of has the same, other components, you know, the right-of-way regulation that most of these have. Can we make it more strict? I doubt it. Legally, I don't think we can.
I don't think we need to either, from what we've got. I mean,
So, I mean, I think this agreement's good.
I do.
It's similar to what I've seen in other communities.
Yep.
You know, I mean, pretty much the same thing, so I don't see any issues with it.
Reading through this 29 pages, I did not notice, or I overlooked it. Was the police department included there? It wasn't spelled out precisely.
As far as one of the drops,
Yes. I did not see it in there.
So, my question is, you know, we're spending a lot of money on attorney fees, going back and forth. What if we just say, okay, let's sign?
And that's what we're telling you to do. That's why we said, because, yeah, that's absolutely what I'm telling you to do.
This is the bottom line, we're just signing and moving forward, so
Yeah.
right.
we're kind of agreeing to what they want.
No, we're agreeing and saying this is basically what you had before, very similar franchise to what you had before, not stepping backwards. And we're saying this is what the franchise is going to be. Here it is.
But what if they say no? Then they come back with the board.
They maybe come back with something, but the reality is they missed their opportunity to do that, Fred. And that's what Mark was saying, that there were comments, and again, among many cities, these comments. So it wasn't just Kenyon standing there. Bob was dealing with 15, 20 cities with MediaCom on the same thing. All of a sudden, one franchise would come back with something revised, and one would come back with a different one. And he honestly thought, well, it looks like the language is pretty good, as of a month ago or so. And he told me that. And he said, well, we'll just put it on the December meeting. And all of a sudden, another document showed up with something revised. And he said, forget it, we're going with this. This is what we proposed to them. Let's have the council adopt that. So that's where we are.
So the ordinance would compel them to comply with
Yeah.
that?
Yes. And it's very similar to what we had before. Very, very similar. Some tweaks just because the law changed a little, as Mark described. But beyond that, no, it's very similar.
Yeah, Mark, it's in number 10.
Yeah, I'm
It
looking
drops
right
for
now.
public buildings.
You know, I think what is going on right now is the drop is to the PD. I think the fire department we pay for. And this says fire department, but I
So
think
it's not
actually right
reversed?
now it's in the police department.
Well, we can switch it. If reverse, we can switch it if that's what you
But I
want.
think that's how it's been in the past, is I think
Yeah.
the fire department we're paying for their cable,
Yeah.
for their MediaCom, I believe. So I think the intent of that was supposed to be the police department.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we'll switch that then.
And this would require a roll call vote.
It does.
Well, I move that we adopt ordinance 84, ordinance granting franchise to MediaCom Minnesota LLC.
I'll second it.
Accept it.
Aye.
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 Motion passed. Now, we have resolution 2016-34, resolution approving publication of ordinance 84 by title and summary. Makes perfect sense, we don't want to pay for printing
No.
out 90 or 29 pages. And I would move that we adopt resolution 2016-34.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, deferred assessments for Kenyon Road Extension Project.
So there still are some outstanding, or there was deferred assessments in 2007 for 10 years, and you have a list of them in your package. I guess I, put this in on December 2016 because there will have to be some action taken on this. It doesn't have to be tonight, but I guess, the first thing I wanted to find out from Scott was what are the city's options with these things?
Fairly broad discretion for the council, but in this case, the reason that the city deferred for 10 years, and you have the ability to do exactly what it has in the minutes marks attached there, it was basically undeveloped property. It's going to be planted, sold, or developed in the future that you can defer assessments on. Under Minnesota law, the longest an assessment can be deferred is now 30 years, must be paid within 30 years of an assessment. With that said, typically when you've got a time period, and we had a 10-year time period for repayment here, that's why these were 10 years. Can the council go beyond that? Yes, yes you can, but typically you try to have the assessments paid back at the same time and manner that you're doing other assessments as well. The idea was that these would be developed in 10 years, that hasn't happened. Could you extend that for some time period? Sure, we can, if that's what you want to do. There's no requirement, you don't have to act tonight, we can deal with that later. But the reality is that they were supposed to be paid and should be paid, and that's typically what it is. The one thing you can't do with assessments, and the courts have uniformly stated this, you really can't just wipe them out and say they're gone. They're a tax that's just deferred at this point in time.
No, and some of these deferred assessments have been paid.
They have been paid, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Recently.
Are the John Yusted ones, the ones that are still for sale?
Well, the ones that would be for sale, but some of those may have been paid or will be paid soon. There was 3 lots, and 2 of the 3 of them I think had sold, but the middle one apparently hasn't sold yet. There's been so many people that have come and gone looking at those lots, it's crazy.
Yeah, as with any other deferred assessment, it's gotta be paid on transfer of the property.
Absolutely.
Right, when it's sold, correct. Yep.
And that was the term that you had when this was approved 10 years ago.
But the other 2 individuals, their particular lots are not for sale.
No, and Tom Saul, doesn't, would, like, as it requested that the deferment be continued, they're 31,513, and McConnell, I don't have any idea where they're at. So, but it's probably the same as Thomas Saul.
In reality, the taxpayers have picked up these assessments. So I think the taxpayers should,
I mean, that's been paid, and so now it's kind of like the city's just paying itself
Getting
back.
paid
in
back.
fact.
I mean, and you internally have made a loan for that, and you're paying the city back, absolutely.
So, I mean, the options are either to continue to defer that or set up a new deferment period. Second would be to make them payable over a period of time. And maybe the third isn't an option, but to say that they're just doing payable when they expire, or would people still have to be given, if they say, well, we can't pay that now, but we're willing to pay it over a period of time?
Both of those are options. Yeah, I think it's what the council wants to determine is appropriate.
Okay.
Most of the time it's not, unless it's a transaction that's a land sale, but there are, and run into it in a number of communities, they deferred over years, they forget about it, they come to a 30-year time period, they have to be paid, and some of those can be substantial if it's undeveloped property.
They are still accruing interest.
They are.
Yeah, for almost 5% annually. So.
Go to the bank and borrow the money to pay it off and come out ahead.
I think so.
Now, from the memo, wasn't it Tom Saul who was saying that, please let me hold off, I've got a sale pending, or?
No, he doesn't have a
Just-
sale
No,
until he
okay.
sells.
All right,
Yeah, until he sells.
He wants to,
okay, and that was the original agreement, that we could defer until we sold it, or until
that's
10
standard
years.
on any
Yeah,
deferred assessments.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, I think that's basically what it says. If you look at the deferment agreement, it just says until they're sold, there's no time period. But then, when you look at the assessments when they were certified to the county, it was, the deferment was 10 years.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Which probably should have been put in the agreement or whatever, but I'm not sure the logistics of that agreement, so.
And again, typically when the county takes these, they tie it to whatever's being paid on the other assessments. They try to live within that resolution, which is what we're going to do. That gets you up to 10 years.
Okay.
But the council does have discretion
When
to extend.
exactly would the 10 years expire? Did that happen when the second half real estate taxes were due this year, or
I don't remember when. this
We'd have
was
to look at
filed.
the deferment agreement
Yeah,
and see what the date of that is, because it would basically be 10 years
yeah.
from that agreement, or would it be 10 years from when they're certified?
Well, it depends on what the agreement says, but typically it would be
Okay.
controlled by the agreement. But
So we'd have to look at the agreement, but the starting point would be 10 years from the date of that agreement, would be my best guess.
Yeah.
And the minutes are from May of 2006. From this.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, but it started in 2007, isn't that?
Yes.
So this was certified,
Oh, okay.
in 2006 for 2007. So it would be sometime in 2017, and maybe May is
It probably is the first one, it could be the end of this year, because it would run this year as well. So it probably, it might be the first half tax, it might fall into next year, 2017.
So if we say, no, we're not gonna let it go any further, then what happens? I mean, you just gotta come up with the money, or give us the property?
Well, not so much give us the property, it's, you pay the taxes that they're not paid, it's just no different than any other tax problem with a property where it goes tax forfeit eventually. It's on the property, it has to be paid, if it's not paid, it eventually can go tax forfeit.
Yeah, okay. And how many years is that?
Yeah, you're usually talking 5 to 7 years.
I mean,
depending on how you
that's something that
program.
happened with the
I know.
old high school.
No, I hear you, Richard. It's not a perfect solution that the legislature set up, but that's what it is. Most people pay. I mean, in all honesty, most people in the state pay.
If they want the property, yeah. Uh-huh.
Basically, the cities are kind of like being a banker, and we shouldn't be in the banking business.
Whenever you do the deferrals, that's really what is happening. Yeah, because you typically, if you're paying back a bond, which for the street project you have to find the monies elsewhere to pay those back until you receive that. Now, is there a windfall now? Well, yeah, but there's time value of money, it would have been worth more before as well, and that's why you have interest accruing on this. You have to see if that balances, that's what you try to figure out.
And, the thing with the deferral in this case, which is pretty common, is these were deferred in areas that were undeveloped land, large parcels that were ag land. And these owners said that the city extended the street past there. Now, obviously, those properties gained utilities and they gained higher value because of that.
Correct.
But the owners asked for the deferral because those properties weren't being developed at that time. They were just, open, just ag land, basically. Now, being that their 10 years out is up, one thing I probably would say before a decision was made is to, I don't know, you call having a hearing, but there probably shouldn't be some mechanism where the council talks to these people or whatever. Before you arbitrarily just make some kind of.
No, and that's what I mean, I'm not sure tonight's the night to make that decision, but certainly if the council does that, Mark, I agree, Mark would invite those folks in to have a conversation with you. And if there was any amendment to the agreement, you amend it to say, okay, you've got 2 years, 3 years, whatever, and then the drop dead date is pay all of it or pay over time or whatever. But yes, if you forget about them, they're out there, you can run into a situation where you have to pay it all.
I certainly agree with Fred that it's something that needs to be dealt with and dealt with soon. Probably not tonight because we're not real sure of the dates involved, and
I think it would be proper to have them come in.
Yeah,
Right.
I
at
agree
least,
with that.
at least notify
About
them,
it,
and, so I don't,
I don't even know if it's ever commonly around.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I know
Just
you.
whoever the owner is. And the other one's in an estate.
Yeah, it's in the state now.
But it's kind of the same deal though. So if we notify these people, I don't know, with like February meeting?
January or February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at the agreement, look at
Okay.
what was approved by the county, we can decide if it, when you do modifying assessment, you are supposed to have a hearing. So arguably, we could call it a hearing and go that
Well,
route.
why don't you check into that and see what would be the best way to go? If we have to have a hearing, I would
Yeah.
say it'll probably be February.
Okay.
That's why I brought it to this meeting though, because we have some time to,
So the only action we need to take, we just did in directing staff to,
Scott's gonna look
get
into
those
that.
ducks lined up and, so we could move on to old business, resolution 2016-31, resolution adopting the 2017 budget and establishing the tax levy for payable 2017. Final budget shows levy increase of 5.7%. Do we have a motion to approve? We have discussion, do we have any?
I would like to see it at 5%, but other than that,
No, that really was the number that we agreed on earlier.
Yeah, well, we found after we ran the last budget that the actual increase based on what had been preliminary approved was 5%, so it was it 1% lower than what was originally talked about, the maximum levy. It could be 5%. I mean, that's not really gonna throw things too far out of whack, I don't think. As far as the budget that's been.
I think the motion we pass the levy at 5.7.
We will second your motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
any opposed?
Richard opposed.
He is, oh.
So, on to new business, storm sewer maintenance fees.
We talked about during the budget process that the stormwater fund will be running a deficit in 2017 unless the monthly charges are slightly increased. At the work session, we talked about what sounds like a large increase, 17%, but based on the fact that the fees are $3 a month, that's 50 cents a month. For commercial, it would go from $6 to $6.50. And for multi-unit, it would go from $150 per unit to $175. And I guess I would recommend sticking with that increase, because that'll give us a little bit of, it could be a little bit less than that, but I think, $335 versus $350 or whatever, I would recommend just going with $350 to keep that fund in the black. So, and that fund hasn't been I don't think it's ever been increased since it was set up. Or if it has, it's been a long time.
Well, I make a motion that we increase it to the 17%.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolution 2016-32, resolution committing capital fund balances, and this is another yearly,
Right, exercise.
yeah, a few of those here.
Yep.
And just to change things up, I'll make the motion that we approve resolution 2016-32.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Approve transfer of fire department year-end remaining funds to capital fund.
This is, again, just an annual thing, and it is gonna be based on the final amount of what the capital, would remain in that capital fund at the end of December. So this is kind of like a pre-approval, and this is the same thing we've done the last couple of years at least, is to take whatever the remaining balance is in that fund, or that part of the budget, transfer to capital.
I move we approve the transfer of the fire department year-end remaining funds to capital fund.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
2017 agreement for state building code administration, another annual yearly thing. Agreement with Goodry County county to do the residential and commercial building inspections. Not to object, but just as a point of curiosity, would we not partner with the county on this? What would our other options be?
Just to try to hire a buildings person to, you know, contracted to do the building inspections on a contractor basis. And then they would be paid probably the same setup that we have in this, like 75% of it goes to cover the building, you know, inspector. It would probably be the same kind of thing. I think the county's does a good job for us. You know, we get 2 people basically, and they run over here fairly often. So I mean, I like using them. I've done it both ways, and you know, it certainly can work with a contracted person depending on, you know, who they are, like anything else. But I think this is a good. I mean, it's worked pretty well for us. We don't have a ton of building permits, or especially big ones. So I mean, I think it's a cost effective. I mean, I think it works pretty well because, like I say, we have Scott, and then we also have Doug, so basically we have 2 people. And I think that's kind of nice, because if Scott has some questions or isn't sure, then he can work with Doug, and so we kind of get two people looking at it, which I think can be helpful sometimes. So.
I'll make that a motion. Do we accept the county?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And another annual, the 2017 tobacco license renewals for Motormark, Kenyon Market, Super America, River County Co-op / Super America, and Municipal Liquor Store.
So, Chief, we should probably ask this every year. Have there been any issues with any of these
None.
places?
Nope. We did have a large theft from one of the convenience stores, and we did have a juvenile come in and admit to part of that theft, but that was nothing to do with them selling illegally or anything like that. So no, we haven't had any issues other than this theft lately. So, and I've spoken to the store about that, and the manager knows, and so we're working on that. But no, otherwise than that, nothing else.
Great.
So I move we approve the 2017 tobacco license renewal.
I did have one comment, and that was, I'm not sure it's a great idea to have the city in the business of selling tobacco. And also in the past, I know the liquor store has sold tobacco at a loss. So 2 comments, let it go with that. I guess we would have to look further to see if that's still the case.
It's actually rather hard to believe, knowing the price that.
Yes,
that
Now,
they're
they weren't
charging
sure
more than
if
anyone
cigarettes
else.
were walking off,
Right.
because
Yeah,
what they were
shrinkage.
getting was less than covering the cost. Yeah. So anyway,
Anyway, my motion stands, waiting for a second. Second. All in favor?
aye.
And we have an information item on the bridge replacement on Highway 56, which was in the plans for last year, got taken out, and
Right.
in the plan for this,
It's back again.
or this coming year, rather.
So basically, the plan is the same as last year. The county is preparing to go to bids on this. The bids will be let, I would say, maybe late February. And their plan is to do it the first half of this, spring